Some on the left, they were outraged by President-elect Trump's musings about acquiring Greenland, reclaiming control of the Panama Canal, and even offering to make Canada the 51st state.
Okay. But however, others argue that these bold moves and effective negotiating tactics, with one report suggesting that Trump's unpredictable big picture strategies have yielded positive results.
Interestingly, some Canadians have begun warming to the idea of a closer economic integration with the U.S. For example, Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary wants to merge the two nations, saying, quote, "I like this idea. And at least half the Canadians, they are interested. I'm going to go to Mar-a-Lago. I'll start the narrative."
Joining us to discuss, former National Security Council Chief of Staff and Senior Fellow, America First Policy Institute, Fred Fleitz, and Plus partner and co-founder of Flynn Zito Capital Management, Doug Flynn. What are your thoughts on this, Fred? I gotta go to you first. You know, I've known you for over a decade, so I'm very curious. What are your thoughts on this whole Greenland and Canada 51st state? Just feel free to let us know.
Well, before we talk about whether this is posturing or the president is engaged in some type of complex deal making, I think the message is that under a Trump presidency, other nations are not going to walk on the United States, and China is not going to take advantage of us. If nothing else happens, he sent the message to Canada, to Panama, and to Greenland that Chinese influence is not welcome, and he's not going to stand for it. But you know, there are possibilities for Greenland and Canada of some type of merger with the U.S. I don't know how likely it is. Greenland only has 56,000 residents. Canada has 20 million, which is nothing for a major power. And economies of scale make people richer. So there could be the makings of a deal here.
Doug, what do you think?
Yes, jumping off of that, I think that, you know, everything sounds extreme to people on the other side of the aisle until you do a little bit of digging and you find out, for instance, in Greenland with Denmark, we actually got the U.S. Virgin Islands. We bought them 100 years ago from them. So you know, this is not unprecedented. And we also have a Space Force base on Greenland. So we're in charge already of their security. So it's important for our security to have a base there, obviously, and so expanding that or at least throwing it out there. And the same thing with Canada, of course. You know, they may not want to become the 51st state, but you know, 75% of all of their exports that they do as an entire country come to the United States. So throwing these things out there and negotiating and getting better deals for us, I think, are really what this goes to. And there's no doubt when it comes to something like the Panama Canal, we're going to end up with a better deal, if nothing more than the fact that you've got two Hong Kong-based, you know, ports there that they're monitoring, and you know, Hong Kong is owned by China now, so we have to be very careful about that. And so I think that's what this is about, is kind of getting better angles for the United States and the people.
So that takes me back to you, Fred. I'm really interested in your views on the Panama Canal, because how many Americans died building that, along with now we're having to pay. We sold it to Panama for what, $1? Some people have even made sarcastic remarks that they hope Jimmy Carter lives to see that the Panama Canal gets back into the U.S. control, because we're basically getting robbed by the very canal that we built. What are your thoughts on that?
I think all of that is true, and it's been documented for some time that China has a growing economic presence in Panama and a growing economic presence concerning the canal. This is a real threat to our economy and our national security. This cannot stand. And Trump has sent a message he won't tolerate this. And if the Panamanians are going to go along with this, there's going to be some pretty drastic action by a Trump administration.
Fred, build on, does that mean military?
You know, I don't want to say, I'm just going to say, we know Trump's opening position that this Chinese presence is unacceptable. And given his unpredictability and the fact that Trump does carry through with his promises and threats, I think the Panamanian government is taking him very seriously.
Doug, why don't you think the Biden administration or any other previous administrations outside of Trump attempted stuff like this? It seems like it makes a lot of sense when you go back historically, especially, and look at our contribution building the Panama Canal. Why Trump? Why is he the one to lead the charge on this?
Well, China has taken an ever-increasing, you know, part of the traffic through the canal It's the second largest user behind the United States. So as they're getting to be a bigger part of that, they're flexing their muscle, throwing money into the country, and trying to become more important to not only just Panama, but many other countries. And so the United States, it's sort of just, they've gotten, emerging market status and most favored nation status and all of those things that the U.S. gave them as if they're a third world country. And, they're the second largest economy in the world, and we're still treating them like they're an emerging market. So at some point, they're not the China that it was a long time ago. And with all the stuff that they do with data, part of running the ports there is that they're collecting all of that data from all the ships that go through. And China likes to collect that data. I don't know what they're going to do with all of it, but a lot of people don't feel it's going to be anything good. And so I think this is to the point where it's like, hey, listen, this has gone far enough. Let's just negotiate a better deal here for us, for all of the reasons in what we did for Panama here. And also just to kind of tamp down China. Nobody has really done that. They've just been able to run and pollute and do all the things that they do unfettered. And I think that's the difference here, is first and foremost for the Americans, but also just worldwide, becoming a better global citizen, because they don't always do the right thing with their human rights and pollution, a lot of the other things that China does.
Doug, Fred, got to leave it there. Appreciate it.
Good to be here.